Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Latham Woodward. He's the CEO at Sense Distribution, Inc. Latham, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think what we're going to talk about today is very much on kind of the cutting edge of what's happening in today's society. But maybe before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Sure, sounds good. I'm a native Californian.
Oh, rare breed.
Actually, I'm a rarer breed because I'm a fifth generation native Californian.
Wow, very cool.
Which makes us a true rarity.
Yeah.
I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, primarily in San Francisco and Marin County, right across the Golden Gate Bridge.
Nice.
Been here most of my life. I have moved away to Southern California, to Oregon. And I've lived, in Wyoming a bit, in France a bit, and always came home to Northern California, which I truly love.
Very cool. So you went to university. What did you take and why?
I'm an old school person. I was an English major at University of Oregon.
Okay.
My parents were in firm belief of getting a good liberal arts educational background to create that launch pad that takes you to the next level in life.
Okay, very cool. And then you went to Santa Barbara College too, right?
I did. I went to Santa Barbara City College for a year due to some financial issues.
Okay.
Divorced parents, that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
You got to move on.
No, fair enough. Okay, so walk me through your career, maybe just some career highlights along the way, because you've done a ton of stuff up until what you're doing today.
Yeah, I mean, I have been in primarily for the last 30 plus years, prior to 2 years ago, in the construction and manufacturing business. I got out of college and I got myself a job and moved myself up in that company to a vice president position in about 5 years. Moved on to another company, got hired on, and then bought them out in a year, and then created a kind of a interesting business model where we were doing residential and commercial client manufacturing and construction, and I really specialized in the manufacturing side and commercial aspects. So I had clients all over the United States. Big ones were Pete's Coffee, Restoration Hardware, CBTL in LA. Well, and that was kind of my niche. But OEM manufacturing for these companies really kind of got me spurred in this interesting direction in manufacturing. And I took that knowledge base, and when we founded Sense Distribution, I took all of that knowledge and aimed it at producing products for the public, but yet we do have a commercial wing too, that we're trying to service the commercial edible market as well.
Okay, very cool. So walk me through what you guys are doing now, and let's get into some of the products you're creating.
Sure. Sense Distribution is a company that's, based on making products for adult consumption. Our target audiences are adults from 25 to 85.
Okay.
The most interesting demographic in our group is my mother's bridge group age, from 75 to 85, who continuously ask me for our products and ask what I'm doing, because they are all, as you can imagine, now I'm sure they are in Canada as well, all on some sort of drugs to deal with aging ailments. And
Sure.
none of these people like them. I mean, frankly, they're I know in Canada you have a little better drug situation in terms of cost than we do down here, but still it can be onerous cost-wise, and people are not satisfied with the results they're getting, and especially with having to take one drug and then another drug to counteract the side effects of the first drug. So
Interesting.
experimenters and late adopters, as we call them, are our kind of primary demo. They
Okay.
want to try something to aid their life. I don't make health claims for our products, but what I do say is at least this: our products can help you get your mind off of what ails you. And that's 80% of the issue, I think, usually is, at least it is for me.
Sure. Okay.
So
Keep going. Sorry.
well, I'm sorry to continue then. Since we make products like Shoogies, which is our agave syrup, and our sugar, which is infused with THC, where our CBD product is about to launch soon as well. We have another product coming out called Muktails, which is a cocktail drink, single service, where you can add it to water and it gives you some THC and a nice cocktail type drink that you can drink with your friends if you're a non-drinker like myself. Even if you're not a non-drinker and you just want something refreshing and delicious to carry on your day. We are working on another product called Happy and Happy, which is a small pastille candy, also very low dosage, aimed at the exact same demographic.
Very cool. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into Shoogies and kind of how did you come up with the idea and what exactly do people use it for?
Well, I came up with the idea because I was importing tequila from Mexico for another venture that I was working on as a consultant.
Okay.
And I was bringing in tank loads of tequila to the United States in a bond-to-bond transfer from Guadalajara. And when I was down there during one business trip, I went to an agave plant, a very, very high-tech and innovative plant that makes beautiful agave syrup products. And I looked at it and I just said, wow, this is interesting. And so about a year later, I said, how about if we package this with a little THC and we give it in a single serving rather than the bottles you see in the market? And from there, it just kind of started to expand in terms of how we were going to package. And I ended up going to Turkey, Istanbul, Turkey, to get my machines. And now we package them. Yeah, and we package these in individual stick packs, much like Nescafe you see in a hotel room.
Right. Okay. So I'm curious to dive a little bit deeper into actually, because obviously you probably had to try a bunch of recipes to get it right. Walk us through that process and how come you had to go to Turkey to get a machine to do some of the packaging?
Well, I'll address the packaging issue first.
Okay.
In my former career in manufacturing, I learned a couple things. Number one was a lot of people around the world make things in terms of machinery. Smart. The U.S. or Canada, that's not the only place. And it's, our kind of narrow focus on being Northern Americans is you just kind of focus on here in your backyard. Well, fortunately, the United States has trade agreements with a number of countries around the world. Argentina, I used to buy equipment from Argentina because there's no trade, no tariff, and no tax. Turkey, we have a favored nation status with as well. So I can buy machines there with very low tax and tariff, providing that machine does not directly compete with machines made in North America.
Okay.
And that has worked incredibly well. So machines that I would typically find here in the U.S. for $150,000 to $200,000, I can get for a fraction of the cost overseas in a number of locations.
Oh, smart.
So having done that purchase process before, I just expanded on that, and it was great for our bottom line. And what was the second part of the question? I forgot.
No problem. How did you figure out? Like, obviously, you probably had to try a few recipes to figure it out. Walk us through the trial and error process of actually creating something people can actually consume.
Well, it is proprietary, our recipe, but I can tell you this much. Our recipe is very simple, and there are some tricks to it on both fronts, in the sugar and agave, and we're working on maple syrup as well.
Okay, but did you have to, like, obviously, probably the first time you tried to create it, it probably didn't work out and you had to tweak the recipe? Like, did you have to go through, 50 versions of a recipe? Or I don't necessarily care what's in it. I'm just curious to walk us through the struggle of figuring it out.
Probably 10 to 15 times
not that bad then.
On each product. No, but it's time consuming. And the biggest issue is for on a low dosage product is the testing limits. And that's a problem in California because we have very stringent testing here.
Okay.
And you have to get it within a very tight margin. And it's kind of counterintuitive, but to make something low dosage is harder than making something high dosage.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because in a 100 milligram packet, your tolerance, if it's 10%, well, you've got a 10 milligram swing there, right?
Right.
But in a 5 milligram packet, you're very tight. I mean, you've got to be within, 10%. That keeps you between 4.5 and 5.5. And in California, if you test over, you fail. So that's been our biggest issue. It's just getting homogeneity. I can't even say the word. Homogeneous results, right? In terms of how we do it consistently. So that's been our biggest issue.
No, interesting. So I'm curious, to get it approved to actually sell, do you have to go kind of state by state to get it tested and then approved, or how does that work?
Well, the answer to that is yes. I mean, right now we're only in California, and the testing parameters here in California are known to us, and we're following those strictly. As far as other states, they get addressed individually. But as California is one of the largest markets in the world, we got our hands full here right now.
Got you. And is it 21 in basically every state that it's legal in at this point?
That's my belief. I don't think any state has ratified 18 and over yet.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Because I guess in Canada, there's a couple provinces that are 18 where you can legally buy like cigarettes, alcohol, and cannabis. And then there's a couple provinces where they're 19. Well, most provinces are 19. So, and then obviously you guys, as far as I know, is like 21, right? So it's just interesting between the two countries how similar and different we are in a number of issues, right?
Yeah, I mean, for all good reasons too. I mean, we're different countries, and we're not the same. Canada's not the little brother U.S., and we're not the the big brother of Canada. We are different individual countries and with different rules, and I love that. I mean, it makes us stand out from one another.
No, fair enough. So, because you have a couple different versions of Shoogies, how do people actually use them? Do they put them in their coffee? Do they bake with it? Do they do all the above? Walk us through what people can actually use Shoogies for.
Well, all of the above. I mean, just hit right on the sweet spot of it, so to speak. It's a take anywhere, go anywhere, use anywhere product.
Okay.
The intent is for you to be able to go on with your life on a daily basis and incorporate things you already do and just not have to modify your life at all. It's like if you add sugar to your coffee in the morning or the afternoon, they'll do it with Shoogie sugar. If you take agave syrup and you add it to a margarita, or you add it to a cocktail, or you add it to a fruit juice, do that with our agave syrup. If you put agave syrup on a cantaloupe or some fruit in the morning because that's what you like and you want to have a little relaxing day, put our stuff on it. It's not a hard lift. And the reason we did this is we are not in the business of selling an apparatus or a type of or a lifestyle that is different from what you do. So many people don't smoke weed or marijuana. They don't use a bong. They don't use these things, dabs and that kind of thing. They don't know about that, and they don't really want to learn about it, right?
Sure.
It's not their thing. But they do use sugar, and they do use agave syrup, and they do use other sweeteners. So our product is meant to incorporate that into your life. And so there is no heavy lifting. There is no heavy thinking. If you like our product when you try it, you will continue to use it. It's my belief because I like it a lot, and it's really quite a mellow experience.
No, that's very interesting. So, you guys just got in hundreds of stores across California. Do you want to talk about how you guys actually did that and elaborate on the types of stores people can actually get the product at?
Yeah, we're licensed under a company called Apex. We're a partial owner of that company,
Okay.
and they have a huge distribution network, and they are a dynamic sales machine with outlets in Northern and Southern California, and they've proven to be a great partner, and they really, really push the benefits of Shoogies, and they really like the message we're providing, because they do have the other products. They do have the vape pens, they do have the flower sales, they do have the dabs and shatter and things like this, but that's for a different demographic. I mean, it's usually not the older adults who are using that thing. As I like to say, in the dab market, it's great for the 21-year-olds to 26-year-olds. But for me, a guy over 50, I don't have 8 hours in my day anymore to dedicate to getting high. It just doesn't work. I can't do that kind of time frame anymore.
Sure. Well, and the thing that I found interesting, just for the U.S. listeners that don't know, Canada legalized cannabis usage across Canada last year, and they're about to legalize edibles across the country in the next month or so. And the thing that I found the absolute most fascinating about it getting legalized, well, actually two things. One, how many people that had been in there, I'm 36, just so you have some context. How many people that I knew into their 30s that now that it was legal, they were going to try it. And I think, like, let's be honest here, I think throughout most people's teen 20s and probably into their 30s and beyond that, it's kind of everywhere, right? Like, you go to a concert, you probably have friends that do it. It's kind of everywhere, right? Compared to some of the more harder drugs where you have to make more of an effort to get them. But so the people that wanted to try it now that it's legal, I found that really quite fascinating. The other thing that I found equally fascinating and maybe more fascinating is how many people that I knew that were maybe over 40, maybe even over 50, that are willing to talk about how they've been using cannabis for a number of things for decades now, and you would never know because now that it's legal, it's fine to talk about. Those two things were really quite fascinating to me. And I know you can use cannabis and a bunch of things for a million other things outside of actually even eating them or smoking them. Like, you can use it for clothing, you can use them for manufacturing. There's so many different things that are outside of getting high as well that I think a lot of people don't realize. So do you maybe want to give us your opinion and thoughts around how you've seen society actually accept it? Are they still not accepting it? It really depends who you talk to, or where are we kind of at around the whole cannabis space being accepted, kind of maybe in North America?
Yeah, big question. But I definitely know where you're coming from. This thing, at least in the United States, right? It's
Sure.
like with legality comes acceptance, like immediate acceptance. I mean, in my own life, talking to my wife about me getting into the cannabis business, she's like, well, I don't, is this right? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, it's legal now. These conversations that, we don't have to hide this anymore. It's a legal business,
Right?
One that we can all participate in now. And it shouldn't be in the shadows anymore. I mean, the very fact that marijuana cannabis is in the shadows in the first place was a misplaced attempt by the government and big industry in certain industries, the nefarious industries that we all know and love to hate, but we use every day. And that's like the oil business.
Yeah.
You know, they killed the hemp oil business. All right. Hemp oil is a very versatile product that's been used for thousands and thousands of years. It's not something new. It's not something illicit. It was used everywhere. When it became illegal, well, guess what stepped in? Oil-derived products from the ground.
Right. Interesting.
Hemp, as a twine, as a fiber, has been used for millennia. But yet, what happened? Well, the cotton industry came in. The wool industry came in. And they said, well, you know, let's push this. So you had industrial groups coming to the government saying, hey, we don't like this cheap, easy to grow, readily available, fantastic, versatile plant. Get rid of this. And then, you know, there's a whole horrible racial aspect of it that, you know, that they proposed too in the 20s and 30s, you know, against African Americans, you know, and it goes deep. It's such a deep story. But the point is now it's legal and people are coming out of the shadows. They're talking about it. They're talking about their experiences with it. They're talking about how many people say it saves their relationships. It saves the way they conduct themselves. It gets them off of alcohol. They're finding studies now that it helps people get off of heroin and opiates.
Oh,
They're also, I mean, talk personally, it's made a tremendous impact on me in terms of me being introspective, thoughtful, considerate, and a kinder person. It has also helped my marriage, my 30-plus year marriage, survive. At times, you know, when things get tough, you need to be introspective. You need to go into your head and you need to think about where you're going. And so I think all of these things combined create this positive atmosphere for this very established plant to be reintegrated into society in general.
So obviously it's legal in California and a bunch of states. And I think traditionally, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, California seems a lot more open-minded to anything really than other parts of the country. So do you think you're going to have a bigger challenge moving into some of the other states? Does it not really matter? Is there a big enough market in some of those states, or is it really kind of state to state dependence?
Well, in terms of your Canadian audience listening to this, the one important thing to always remember is the United States is not a country. We're a republic. Our states are individual states. California was an individual country at times.
Right.
So was Texas,
right.
And many states in our union. We formed a union, and that's in our Constitution. And we're separate countries, really. Our laws differ as much to Nevada as Nevada does to Arizona, as Arizona does to Washington State, as it does to Oregon. We don't live by the same set of rules. And that's fine. And that's why we are a republic. We're not one monoblock country. So I address it like this. If I was going to France and going to do my thing, or I was going to go to Canada with my thing, I would respect the laws of that state and abide by them and, you know, make my product according to their guidelines. So we're going to address each individual state that way. Okay. I know some states are easy. Some states are hard. I mean, one of the states I grew up in for most of my summers of my life, Wyoming, right. You know, it's a very serious felony up there. Okay. You know, and it's not to be trifled with. But, you know, right next door, you know, in Colorado, it's wide open. But it's a different model too. Like, for instance, in Colorado, you don't have distributors. You have individual entities that do everything, as in Arizona as well.
Okay. So it is quite different. Yeah, interesting. It is like dealing with a new country per state. That's quite interesting, actually. And makes it really challenging for you guys.
Well, it does, but it also keeps it interesting.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is, and you can't wish for more. And thank God for our company. We're in California. It's the fifth biggest economy in the world,
Right.
so we have plenty of room in this sandbox to play in.
Sure. Fair enough. No, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm kind of curious to dive a little bit deeper into. You've obviously mentioned throughout your career, you've actually brought a number of physical products in kind of the food and beverage space to actual market, which it's really hard to do one time, never mind a handful of times. What advice do you give to people that are looking to actually get into the food and beverage space?
One key piece of advice is listen to people who've gone down the road before you.
Okay.
I got great advice from a friend of mine who owns a huge grocery store chain across the U.S. And when I was in the ready to drink market, it's called RTD market, and he said, I got 25 RTDs on my closeout shelf right now. I got 2 that sell well. Do you want to be one of the 25 or one of the 2? So it can be very difficult to launch a food and beverage product. The other thing is you got to have a lot of money.
Okay.
I don't care how good your product is. You have to have a lot of money to do it right, and you have to have the right people to do it with.
Sure.
It's super stressful, and it's tough lifting, and it's not for everybody. It's fun as anything to get a nice product on the shelf though and see it when you're out shopping.
Sure.
But every time you see it, you go, wow, that took a lot to get it there.
No, fair. So when you say a lot of money, are people looking at single millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars? Does it really depend on what they're trying to do? Or do you have any general advice? I know it's kind of hard when you don't really have a product that we're talking about here, but in general, is there kind of a rule or like a minimum you should have?
For a general grocery product, I mean, in terms of Safeway or Kroger's or some big chain like that, you're looking at tens of millions of dollars.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, you can get something on the shelf for $1 million.
Sure.
But then it's at that point where if you get picked up and you're dominating shelf space, or you're getting good placement, that's when you've got to have the backup reserve to fulfill the orders, because if the second you don't fulfill orders, you're gone.
Right. Fair enough. Okay.
Very, very tough.
So, keep
key
going.
Key advice would be listen to people who have been there before. Pay for consultants within your industrial space, and pay attention to what they say, because they've been down the road, they've been beaten up, and they've risen from the ashes.
Sure. Do you recommend people actually try to get their products in stores, sell online, do both, or does it really depend on what they're selling?
Well, in my space, you can't sell online. You can advertise subtly online, but you can't sell online. Within the cannabis space, you got 2 avenues. That's the dispensary avenue, and then you've got delivery avenue. So those are your 2 primary sources, and there's not really very many others. For non-cannabis products, you can do your traditional sales channels through distributors and that kind of thing. Generally speaking, distributors are where you want to go, but you got to be careful you just don't become a number in their book.
Okay, and any advice for not becoming that number?
That's where you have to have someone always keeping the dialogue open, always checking the store shelves, always looking at what's coming next, and talking to the people there and keeping them invigorated and excited about your product lines.
Okay. No, that's interesting. I think that's actually really good advice. So I'm curious to also get your thoughts on, in the food and beverage space, and again, it's kind of probably general advice, but is there kind of a minimum amount of time you can at least expect to kind of go from idea to concept to actually having something potentially in the store? Like, it seems to me like it's at least months, maybe a year or two. Is that kind of a rough range, or what are your thoughts?
No, I would target 2 years.
Okay. So just to kind of give people some sort of perspective on this. So it's not easy, right? Like, you're grinding for a long time.
No, it's just getting to the goal is the hardest part. I mean, honestly, it's just like that's where it's toughest.
Sure. So I'm curious, once you're in retail, how do you make sure you stay in retail and potentially grow to other retailers? Because that's also got to be really big challenge.
Yeah. I mean, once you're in retail, within the cannabis space, it's different. I mean, when you're in retail, you just got to keep things fresh, and you work with your distributor and you work with your delivery services. As far as the other side of retail, that's just that's another podcast.
Okay. Well, are you spending a ton of time advertising and marketing and promoting your product outside of the retail space to drive people into the retail space to actually go buy your product?
You know, this weekend I've got a minivan and I've got my trade show stuff, and I'm going down to the High Times Cannabis Cup in San Bernardino myself, just to make sure things go well.
Okay.
And then we got the same thing happening in Northern California at Sonoma County Fairgrounds next weekend. So anybody in NorCal comes on out next weekend, come on by and say hi. And then we've got the Bay Area show for High Times coming up on the 22nd, 23rd of June. So trade shows, you know, it's me, it's my partners getting out there and seeing it, experiencing it, and, you know, really showing our product. So it requires constant attention.
Yeah. So you're not just, the point I'm trying to drive home is, sure, you got in hundreds of locations across a state. It's basically like the hard work starts then, right? Like, you need to keep promoting, you need to keep at these things, you need to, obviously, like you just mentioned, go to these trade shows and keep going. Like, you don't just get to sit back and watch your bank account grow. Like, you're hustling this thing constantly.
Yeah, this doesn't go on autopilot. The thing, I think the funniest kind of thing that you see within the media right now is like, oh, cannabis is the gold rush, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you just see guys sitting back with a cigar, chomping and counting their money. You know, that doesn't happen. Sure. You got to be working. It's a business. It's a business like any other business, although it's a weird business.
Sure. Well, and I think there's still a lot of people that have that negative stigma around it and judge. Maybe they don't even use it, but they still kind of judge other people for or like how they use it, or even if they just wear it, right? And so I think as it becomes more and more popular and in a lot more things, I think that stigma starts to fade away. Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts around kind of the stigma around the industry right now?
Hey, great question, and I'll just answer it quite distinctly. People who criticize people who use alternative methodologies for relaxation and perhaps medication are also the same people who take Xanax, or they drink heavily, or they use other prescription drugs that may be opioids, that may be killing them without them knowing. The trust that's been placed in institutions, not only in the cannabis business, not only in the drug space, but generally institutions within our world, has proven time and again to be founded poorly, with the, advertising and messaging. Remember in the 50s, cigarettes were promoted on early television by doctors smoking a cigarette, saying, hey, when I choose a cigarette, I choose Pall Mall for its easy, smooth taste,
Which is wild now, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, it's you look back in retrospect, you're going, what were we thinking? Pregnant women shouldn't be drinking champagne,
Sure. Yeah.
It's just institutions have told us certain things are okay. I think the advent of the internet, it has goods and evils, right? But
sure.
the most positive thing is information is available to everyone now. Rich or poor, you've got a smartphone. If you need the answer, Google it. If you want opinions, go on your Apple product. If you want, any kind of background on anything, you can get it. And what this has done is create the great questioning of everything we do and everything we've been told. And it's like Pandora's box, right? There's a lot of good, but there's probably a lot of bad coming out too. But I think into the light is where you want to be. You don't want to be in the dark. And I think that's where we are right now, going into the light.
No, I 100% agree. And like I mentioned earlier, it's interesting to me now that it's been legal in Canada for about a year now, how many people are even using it recreationally and in other kind of products that they consume, where they would never touch it when it was illegal. And sure, whatever, it doesn't really matter to me, like your choice. But the fact that it seems to me now that it's legal, in theory, it's a lot safer, obviously, and as it makes its way into more and more products that you use every day, and you can pick which products you want it in or not in. I'm curious to get your thoughts on, like, in 3 to 5 years, is it basically going to be like alcohol, where the stigma's just kind of gone?
Absolutely. I think it may be longer. It may be 10 years until it's universally accepted. But already, I mean, it goes back to the whole thing with my mom's bridge partners, right? Already you're seeing that move with people who are formerly resistant. And I'm talking about some conservative old people here. They're not, lefty Democrats or anything like that. These people are conservative, and they're asking me, is like, what does this do? Do you think it would help me? And my answer to them is, it might. It might be a solution for you. So if they're asking me, it means everybody's going to be asking. Everybody's going to be asking about, what can this do? Will it aid me? Now, some people, it has no effect on them. Okay. And some people it has a great effect. I mean, the biggest problem for us, and that's why we're a low dosage product, is you don't want to have the story that I hear a lot, because obviously I have a child, a 17-year-old daughter. My wife and her girlfriends, they've all tried things. And so they've tried primarily like these gummy products, gummy bears, that kind of thing. Right. And sometimes they'll get the super dose, the hot dose, as they call it. And that's what you don't want. That's when you have a person who's a late adopter of THC, cannabis, to have a bad experience. So our point of view is, don't do that. Start out low. Start out very low and see where it takes you. You don't need to have that bad experience, because a bad cannabis experience with the edibles can be very bad. And to some people, it's extremely stressful.
Sure. Nope, fair enough. Well, and I also think, too, it's kind of like anything in life, that if your friend or a bunch of friends try something new and it works for them, they tell other people about it, right? And some people have similar experiences with whatever it is, and others have different things, right? But we as human beings recommend things to others all the time, right? Especially that are working for us, right? So I don't see it any different than anything else in kind of history, really.
No, I mean, and we're all familiar with the term, that guy's a mean drunk, right?
Yeah, sure.
Or that guy's a sweetie pie, when he drinks, nothing affects anyone the same thing. Some people, you eat sugar, you get whacked out of your mind. You can't even think, right? Some people who have sugar go to sleep. So nothing affects people the same way every time. And so it's like anything in your life, you can use a simple example, like I like salami. Well, another guy might not like salami. Maybe it's just too fatty for him. So there's no one thing for everyone. Everybody's got to figure out where they're going. And to talk more about the alcohol correlation, there is very, very little evidence that you see people absolutely ruining their lives through the use of cannabis. there is ancillary information where people will ruin their lives with cannabis through criminal activity, usually around money. It's like a robbery or something like that. But even Ronald Reagan's former head of the DEA said that through a study that he had performed as the head of the DEA under Nancy Reagan, the Just Say No campaign, they found very, very, very limited evidence that cannabis crimes were prevalent or violent. And the majority were criminal activity was around the monetization and the criminal aspect of cannabis.
Yeah. Okay.
So now, when was the last time you knew somebody or heard of somebody smoking a joint and going to rip off a liquor store?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. On TMZ, on TV, or anything, you can see regularly on YouTube a drunk guy goes into a liquor store and robs it. It happens all the time. And it's just, empirical evidence indicates that alcohol is good in some respects. It relaxes you, but there are a lot of downsides. And the drunk driving thing is a big one. And I know people drive high. I don't recommend that ever. I think that's a bad idea. And thank God we've got Uber now.
No, fair enough. Well, and that was going to be actually something I'm curious to get your thoughts on. These low dosage things, like if you put this as an alternative to sugar in your coffee in the morning, can you drive to work on it? Or like, how does that work?
Well, I would never recommend you drive after consuming any drug, right?
Sure. Or alcohol, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not a good idea. I can't answer. I would say don't take any drug or alcohol and drive. No matter what. I'm just going to answer it that way.
Okay. Yeah. No, exactly. That's kind of what I thought. But I just wanted to make that clear to people, right? Just because they have a little bit doesn't mean that it's like fine, right?
No, I don't think it's fine ever. I mean, I think you have to be an adult, and when you're given, you have your 18th birthday and you're going out into the world and you have to interact with other people on a daily basis, you have to treat them with respect, and that includes knowing when it's okay to drive, when it's okay to, take care of children or things that are crucial to keeping your daily life going.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Well, and I think it's a lot of cases too, like people put Baileys in their coffee in the morning and drive to work, and you're kind of like, I don't really think that's okay. So,
well, I'm gonna agree with you on that.
So yeah, like just to give people some sort of context, right? But we're kind of coming to the end of the show, so how about we close with mentioning where people can get more information about you guys and where they can actually pick you guys up and find you guys in stores? Sure.
You can find us at www.shoogies.com. That's SHOOGIES.com. You can also look at our parent website, which is www.sensedistribution.com. We're available throughout the Apex network and in California, which is hundreds of dispensaries in Northern California and Southern California. So look for us at your local dispensary in your area. That's all I can say.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day, man.
Kevin, thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.